You take me down the Phyllis Road. I'm in the passenger seat. Let's do it. Yeah, there's no doubt. Oh yeah, and the best thing is you learn how to do is the half listen. The half listen's the best.
Oh sure. Yeah, as long as you can repeat back something they said so you can fool them. That's all that matters.
But when you screw it up, it doesn't end well. I've screwed it up. It does not end well.
That's right. You weren't listening. Yes, I was. Okay, what did I say? Oh, crap.
Right. That's when you wish you had that little back button that'll go back 15 seconds. Just please, God, let me hear this. I've got nothing here. My girlfriend got me the other day. She said something, right? And I didn't hear the important half. And so after she said it, I asked her a question, and she had already just answered it. And she was like, I just said that. Weren't you paying attention?
Yeah.
Yeah. My phone died for a second. You went in and out on me. You're stuck, dude. When they do that one, you just got to fall on the sword.
You've been with your girlfriend, you said 22 years?
Uh-huh.
All right, so my wife and I have been married for 19, so together for 24. And I feel like once you pass the big 2-0, you are allowed to say, when they say, you weren't even listening to me, you're allowed to go, yeah, no, I wasn't. You're right.
I've done that a couple times. I'll go, you got me. I got nothing here. Yeah. You got me. Sorry.
I mean, look, I'm not saying that you feel good about it. I'm saying, like, you should know each other well enough to know that trying to pass off the lie is a fool's errand.
Well, the best part is, too, she'll go like this. She won't make a big deal about it because she knows she's done it to you, too. You just haven't busted her.
Right. Exactly.
And she knows
exactly.
If she doesn't make a big deal about it when you do it, when you finally do bust her, you can't make a big deal about it.
No, well, see, here's the thing that I've been trying to subliminally do with my wife with work stuff. Like if I'm frustrated with something, be it radio or planning shows or things like that, she'll ask me what's wrong. And I will tell her, oh, it's dumb. You don't care. Hoping that over time she will learn that is the way I feel about what she wants to tell me about work. But every time for like 24 years, she has fired back with, no, you matter to me. It's important. Like, damn it. That's not what I want you to say.
Wrong answer. Come on. I'm important and I matter. Stop that mess.
That's right. I had parents that taught me that wasn't true.
That's right. Demetri's hanging out till 3 today, and you got a great idea for a little thing we're going to roll. A non-sport. Well, it's kind of sports, kind of just a little fun thing we're going to do here in just a little bit regarding Mother's Day and wrestling, which I think is phenomenal.
Did you have a mom? Because I guarantee you we have a bunch of people listening right now who watched wrestling with their mom, whether it was, WWF Raw or I guess now WWE, whatever era it was. I guarantee you we have a bunch of people listening whose mom had a guy, whether because she thought he was gorgeous or she loved the character or whatever. I guarantee our listeners, someone out there has a mom that had a dude.
Yeah, I can see that. My mom was not a wrestling. She thought it was the stupidest, most ridiculous. She just walked through the living room and shake her head. You
also grew up in Baltimore, right?
Yes.
Like, I mean, you grew up somewhere that is cultured. Like, I grew up in Mobile, Alabama. My mother loved the Birdman, Coco Beware, and the Ultimate Warrior.
I know. No, wait a minute. Look, I love my hometown. I love Baltimore.
Sure.
But Baltimore and cultured in the same sentence, you're the first person that's probably ever used that.
Listen, you had Edgar Allan Poe, you had John Waters, who granted is not the height of like fine culture, but he still contributed to the overall pop culture of the place.
Edgar Allan Poe came there to die. Come on, man. Just please.
Hey, why else would you go to Baltimore at that point in history?
Well, exactly. Or now I get this. Oh, so is The Wire real? Anyway, that's what I get all the time. I go, yeah, my neighborhood, we used to do that stuff all the time.
Yeah.
So my mom wasn't into it, but we've already had some answers on the Twitters that we'll get to.
Yes.
And feel free today.
We'll hold those for later.
Right. 803-446-6100. We have the text line. We have the phone line. You can hit us up. Your mom. Did mom watch wrestling, or did she have a wrestler she loved? We're going to get into that today because that's going to be fun. So your mom was Coco Beware.
Someone's mother out there loved Dusty Rhodes.
Oh,
Someone's mom
sure.
loved Dusty Rhodes because he treated women right.
Yeah, Dusty was a gentleman. He was always a good guy. He was always All-American Dusty Rhodes. Oh, yeah, sure. There's no doubt.
I know he's not a woman and thus not a mom, but being behind the board, Captain Dave is sort of the mom of the show today. Dave, who was your wrestler as a kid?
I bet you Dave didn't do wrestling.
Oh, well, I'm pretty old, and my mom, by the way.
Can't hear you, Dave.
I'm pretty old. My mom, by the way, she loved Johnny Weaver.
Oh, wow. I remember Johnny Weaver. He always lost the big match. Johnny always got beat in the big match. You remember Johnny? Do you have any recollection of Johnny Weaver, Demetri?
No, I mean, if I saw him, I might recognize him. It might have been one of those things where I was too young really to know names outside of Hulk Hogan.
Into a break, Google Johnny Weaver, wrestler.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay, done.
Yeah, you'll see Johnny Weaver. And the sad thing is, I know who Dave's talking about because my uncle loved Johnny Weaver. Johnny Weaver and Wahoo McDaniel. That was my uncle's jam because my uncle loved wrestling.
My sister loved Lars Anderson, who was a bad guy.
Wow, sister love. Listen to Dave go. Sister loved Lars Anderson.
Even as a young man, Johnny Weaver appears to be 65 years old.
He looks like that old dude sitting on the porch in your neighborhood smoking heaters. Am I wrong?
That's right.
He had a body like mine.
He wore a bra.
It looks like
he was the first wrestler to wear a bra.
He came to the ring, it appears, in either a bathrobe or a varsity jacket, but nothing in between.
Yes. Johnny Weaver. You have just gotten the education of Johnny Weaver. There you go, Demetri. All right, so
I want to hear those from the listeners, be it text, be it Twitter, be it on the phone lines, 803-404-6100. Someone's mom was horned up for somebody in the WWF.
Absolutely. All right, we'll get to that through the show as well. Celebrating Mother's Day in only the way we can. There we go. And we'll go and get back into a tough night last night for South Carolina, losing to Georgia at Founders in the first game of that series. We will get into that come next, hearing some sound from Coach Mark Kingston. Also, we will look, we'll get into it in the next segment. Where do you go from here? You got 5 SEC games left. You're battling for a position to hopefully host the regional, but you lost that first one. You can't lose a home series to Georgia. Then all of a sudden, you're going to have to do a lot more at Tennessee than you can possibly do. So these next 2 games are kind of important. We're going to get into it next. Demetri's here. Captain Dave's here. Johnny Weaver might show up. It's a halftime show. We're hanging here up until 3 on the game. Halftime show, Terry Ford, Demetri Ravenos hanging out with us today. We're giving Tyler the day to run around, put pit grease on himself, and play around at Darlington. So Demetri's hanging here as we roll till 3 on the game. Last night, again, tough road. Gamecocks falling to the Bulldogs. 14-10. You get behind early, Demetri. Georgia puts a 4 spot on you in the first inning. Roman Kimball had tough time locating. When he did locate, Georgia barreled it. You know, it's 4-0. You come back with your 3 spot to make it a 1-run game. Then you need a shutdown inning in the second. But Georgia then pops 3 more, and you're just you're running uphill the rest of the night, man, trying to play catch up. You score 10 runs, which should be good enough to win. But, you know, your pitching's just got to get better for game 2.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Like, that's the frustrating thing about college baseball, particularly in the SEC. Like, there's just so much offense in this conference that you can have a hell of a night with the bat in your hands, and your opponent, like, it's not out of the question. Your opponent is going to be that much better, and there are no guaranteed wins in this conference, and that's sort of why Carolina is kind of dancing on that line of hosting a regional or being a 2-seat somewhere.
Yeah, when you look at, like last night, Georgia's a high-level offensive team, and they've got possibly the first pick in the draft in Charlie Condon. And, you know, Roman Kimball comes out of the gate, again, just struggled. Couple of walks, couple of hits. Before you know it, 4 earned runs on the board. More walks from Ty Good and Tyler Dean, Drake Quinn. I mean, you can't walk 10 guys and hand extra base runners to an offense as good as Georgia's.
Right. I mean, and here is the problem now. You do that, you've got to, geez, do you have to sweep the weekend now, or do you have to go into Tennessee and sweep that as well? Because if Georgia's a high-level offense, man, Tennessee's a high-level everything in this conference.
Yeah, and so to me, I think you have to win the next 2. Because losing a home series, like Georgia's, you know, higher in the RPI than South Carolina. South Carolina D1 baseball rankings a tick ahead of Georgia. But this game is at home at Founders. And like you said, this year, the road in the SEC has been a bear for everybody. You know, it's been very tough to win on the road in the SEC. You're in your home ballpark.
Yeah.
This is a series you need to win 2 out of 3. Then if you go to Tennessee and lose 2 out of 3, okay, you split 6 against 2 high-level squads. That should still keep you in that mix to hopefully be on the right side of the fence to host. But if you lose 2 out of 3 to Georgia, then you go lose 2 out of 3 to Tennessee. I don't know. Depending on what some other teams do, Demetri, you might fall out of a hosting spot.
Right, and that is a real problem, and I think college baseball fans know this, and if you don't, I mean, if you fall out of a hosting spot, it doesn't just become about straight seeding like the NCAA basketball tournament. The NCAA is going to try to put these regionals together in a way that makes it easy for fan bases to travel. So if you lose a hosting spot and you're Carolina, suddenly you're looking at going to Clemson, who is really good. You're looking at maybe going to North Carolina or Duke or East Carolina, all really good. I mean, if you fall out of hosting, suddenly you're in a really disadvantaged spot, because it's not like just because of where you are ranked, they're going to slide you into one of those regionals hosted by a mid-major like a UCSB or an Indiana State.
All right, Mark Kingston talked after the game. Roman Kimball, again, the opener last night, just had struggle with his command and location and control. And when he did throw strikes, they were barreled up pretty good by the Georgia offense. Here is Coach Kingston talking about Roman Kimball. Cut 13, Dave.
I mean, we're always evaluating everything for sure, and we'll always do what we think is in, you know, the best interest of the team. So we'll always evaluate everything.
So that's about Roman Kimball moving forward, because Kimball also struggled last weekend and is just, again, you got to throw strikes. It's that simple, Demetri. I mean, no matter how good your stuff is, if you can't throw it for strikes, none of that really matters, and you get behind in counts, and then you've really got to, you know, you got to be at the mercy of the hitter. So Roman Kimball, we'll see if he starts again or not. That's an open question.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like offensive line play in football, right? Regardless of the level, it doesn't matter what sort of special playmakers you have elsewhere. If you can't do the most basic thing, you are going to have problems. And, you know, not being able to locate pitches undoes guys from Little League all the way up to the majors.
And we'll get Mark Kingston here, another cut, talking basically about the issues that happened last night in the loss to Georgia.
He leaves too many balls up. When he can get the ball, Roman needs to pitch up in the zone, but not above the zone. And there's a big difference. When he's above the zone, he walks guys. When he's at the top of the strike zone, he gets a lot of fly balls and swings and misses. And there's a fine line between that.
And that's the issue of Roman Kimball last night. He just was above the zone. He was wild, and then he got behind in counts. And then when you had to groove pitches, Georgia's a really good offensive team, Demetri. They make you pay. It's that simple.
Yeah, I mean, you have to, because here's the thing. If you are suddenly behind the 8-ball in counts every single time, like a team like Georgia is good enough to know that 9 times out of 10, if you have walked a guy and now are suddenly in danger of walking another guy back to back, you probably have a really good shot of getting a meatball right down the middle just to get the pitcher back in stride a little bit. And at this level, that's going to be turned on every single time.
And that was the issue last night. Getting behind, walking hitters, hitting a few batters, and then the fact that you give Georgia all those extra base runners, and they do make you pay. And, of course, Charlie Condon last night, first time up, rips a double, knocks in a run. Second time up, rips a home run, and ended up going 2 for 4, was walked as well. Here's Coach Kingston talking about the guy that looks like he'd most likely be the first pick in the MLB draft.
Well, I mean, he's the best hitter in the country right now, and he's seeing the ball really well. He sees the ball really well. He seems to be on a lot of different pitches. He was 2 for 4 tonight, so he was a little bit above what he normally does. He usually hits 470, so you can't walk him every time. He's a really good hitter, and we'll continue to pick our spots with him.
Well, the interesting part about him, too, Demetri, if, you look at his numbers, and you're like, you picture like old school slugger, right? No, he's like 6'6". He's lean, he's just got like stupid bat speed, but he doesn't look like that beer league softball number 4 hitter. Remember that guy? He doesn't look like that dude.
I was that guy.
Guy used to walk up, he'd put his beer down at home plate, hit a ball 500 feet, and just walk around the bases drinking his beer.
It was not unlike Babe Ruth, where it's either a home run or a single. There's no in between because he is physically incapable of it.
But Condon doesn't look like that guy. It's interesting. The bat speed's crazy.
It's the change. It's the change we saw kind of at the end of the steroid era, right? Where a lot of these guys at baseball at all levels were becoming more and more athletic all around. And now, like, how common is it to have someone in the middle of the infield hitting at a key spot in your order? When you and I were kids, that was unthinkable. Like tonight, what is interesting is you're going to have 2 pitchers at least scheduled to go that are almost mirror images of each other. And the difference really has been the difference in the season for Georgia and South Carolina. Eli Jones and Leighton Finley have exactly the same ERA. They seem to have almost identical strikeout and walk numbers. The difference is the record, and it has been where Georgia can capitalize on Condon's big nights, and South Carolina doesn't have that option.
I will continue to talk about what happened last night at Founders again. It's really in your interest to win game tonight for South Carolina against Georgia. 5:15 pregame, 5:30 first pitch here on the Game in Columbia.
There's someone writing that down. Want to win.
It's really in your best interest to win tonight, Game. And we'll have it here on the Game in Columbia and also our affiliate in Myrtle Beach. All right, we've also talked about in honor of Mother's Day, and this is totally Demetri's topic. I wish I could steal it and make it my own, but Demetri was like, I got a great idea for Mother's Day. Let's talk about moms, their favorite wrestlers. I was like, all righty. So 803-404-6100. You can text it to us. You can hit us on Twitter at 1075 The Game. And we also, you can pop it up on our phone line. Joe's been holding on, Demetri. Let's get Joe in here. He's going to talk about
wonderful.
His mom and wrestling. Hey, Joe, thanks for calling the halftime show on the Game. What's up, my man?
Hey, Terry, this is St. Peter's Joe. How you doing today?
I'm doing great, man. You good?
I'm good.
All right.
When I grew up, my mom didn't watch a lot of wrestling, but we watched on 2 stations up in northern New Jersey, and favorite wrestler was Johnny Valentine.
Johnny Valentine.
Oh, sure. I remembered the name. I couldn't tell you what he looks like, but I remember the name. And have you watched, Joe, have you watched any of the Dark Side of the Ring series?
No.
Okay, so it's all these stories of wrestlers and how things went wrong, et cetera, et cetera. But everybody from that part of the country cites Johnny Valentine as part of what made them want to do this.
Interesting.
Well, he was a good guy and a star. The bad guy back then was the original Nature Boy, Buddy Rogers.
Buddy Rogers, yes, sir.
Wow, you're going old school, Joe. Old school.
Hey, I'm 76 years old. I've been watching wrestling since I was 5.
Fantastic. Oh, that's great. Joe, thanks for the call, my man. We appreciate you. See, when he said Johnny Valentine, I remember Greg the Hammer Valentine. I don't remember Johnny Valentine.
Greg the Hammer Valentine, who even at age like 30 looked like a 60-year-old lesbian, didn't he?
I'm just getting the mental picture of Greg the Hammer Valentine now through that thought.
Yeah.
Now I'm totally,
Yeah, tell me I'm wrong.
I wish I could.
Tell me I'm wrong. That's a lady that owns a condo in North Myrtle and has strong feelings about the neighborhood. I'm going to tell you, when we come back, I'm going to tell you a story about what my mother swears is the best Mother's Day gift I ever gave her, and it involves WWF legend, the Birdman, Coco Beware.
You know what? I will never think of Greg the Hammer Valentine the same ever again. Ever again. Ever again. Demetri's with us. Captain Dave's here running the show, halftime show. Terry Ford, Demetri, Captain Dave will come back. A couple things. Obviously, Carolina baseball will continue on the night that was last night and what's happening, or hopefully will happen moving forward the rest of the weekend. And in honor of Mother's Day, who is your mom's favorite wrestler? You can hit us up again, 803-404-6100. You can call, you can text, you can hit us up at 1075 The Game on Twitter. Please participate. We go till 3, halftime show in the game.
still there, right? Okay, I just noticed your thing changed. So. Oh, okay.
Halftime show. Terry Ford, Demetri Ravenos hanging out with us today. We're giving Tyler the afternoon off so he can run around Darlington, because no one loves racing like Tyler. It's
well, the
unreal.
man's been hired on multiple pit crews out there.
He could probably work on a pit crew.
Yeah, he's the jack man.
I tell you, I mean, it's funny because we do our little greatest day in the history of the world here at 2:30, which is just a day in history, and every now and then a NASCAR thing will come up, and I'll quiz him. I'll go, okay, what happened on this day in 1985 involving this guy? And boom, he'll tell you. It's almost like he's like, it's like Rain Man for NASCAR trivia, right?
Right.
One day, he got one wrong. I thought he was going to cry. He was so upset.
I was about to say, he had to have beaten himself up about it. He's such a perfectionist.
I can see him at home with his wife. Honey, what's wrong, Tyler? I don't want to talk about it. No, I can't. Like your thing. I care about you. Tell me. I missed a NASCAR trivia question today. He loves it.
That's right.
My man loves it. So we're letting Tyler hang out of Darlington today.
Do you realize how many of those pit jobs are done by former college football players?
I've heard.
Like so many of those jobs. Yeah, so many of those jobs are about strength and speed, right? So like linebackers and offensive tackles, whether it's changing tires, being the jack man, like a lot of those dudes out of like, I would guess Carolina's in this group, but a lot of those dudes out of like the ECUs and the Charlottes and those G5 teams around that area get recruited to come work in NASCAR garages because they have the body type they need.
Well, you think about you look at that stuff. I mean, those tires. I mean, you can't be built like me and start lifting and throwing NASCAR tires. I mean, you need some dudes.
How about the jack? You got to get like that, but you got to get that much lift in just like 2 pumps out of that jack. You've got to be winning the strongman thing at every state fair you go to. Right?
If I was one, it would take me a half hour to change the tire. Can you see them in the pit road? Other guys, 23 seconds. I'm over there 15 minutes trying to get the jack up. Oh, yeah, just no doubt.
That's right. And screaming at the driver, quit yelling at me.
Leave me alone. Oh, man. So we're hanging out. Obviously, we've been talking a lot about the South Carolina loss last night to Georgia. Real quick, we have 2 things we're going to juggle around today. One is obviously the loss. Kennedy Jones, though, 4 for 5, 3 RBIs. The offense wasn't the problem. Scored 10 runs, and scoring 10 runs should get you a W typically. So South Carolina's offense, I mean, they did some heavy lifting last night in the loss. Kennedy Jones, like I said, 4 hits, and here's Mark Kingston after the game talking about his left fielder.
Well, he's a good player, and good players have really good nights. Nobody has great nights every time they play. That's why great hitters hit 300. But he's one of our best hitters. He hits in the middle of the order, and he's a key guy for us, no question about it.
Very good night for Kennedy Jones in the loss. Also, Dalton Reeves, Parker Nolan, Ethan Petrie all had a couple of knocks as well. Again, today, 5:15 pregame, 5:30 first pitch here in Columbia and in Myrtle Beach as the Gamecocks try to even up this series with the Georgia Bulldogs after last night's loss. A game, again, this is in your best interest. You really need to win this game tonight. You need to win the series. And we'll get more into that. The other thing we've been talking about, and again, Demetri, thinking about Mother's Day in the wonderful, loving way that Demetri would think about it. Hey, let's talk about our mom's favorite wrestlers. So, go ahead.
Yeah. So growing up, I guess introduction to wrestling was largely through my older cousins. So we are talking about the Saturday Morning Superstars era of the WWF. And I was a big Hulk Hogan guy, like every kid at that time. If you loved Hulk Hogan, you of course hated Andre the Giant. But my mother would sit and watch with me, and she was drawn to favorites of her own. She loved the Ultimate Warrior. She loved the Bushwhackers, who you may remember were the tag team that was billed as being from Australia. I think they were actually from like Melbourne, Florida, if I remember right. But they were billed as being like from the Australian bush, and they came out and they would lick each other's heads. And on their way down to the ring, they would lick the head of a child in the audience. It was just the way, like, it was such 1980s professional wrestling stuff that my mom thought it was hilarious. But the man she loved more than any other was the Birdman Koko Beware. Do you remember him?
Yes, I remember Koko Beware.
Yeah. Big black man at that time was not built. He was like muscular fat, if that makes sense. But he would bring down his parrot, Frankie, to the ring for every match. He would wear a sequin jacket, and my mom just thought that the earth revolved around Koko Beware. So a few years ago, are you familiar with Cameo, Terry?
Oh, sure.
Yeah, so it's the web platform. Various celebrities are on there. You can pay a certain amount of money, and they will make a personalized message for you or a loved one or something like that, right?
Yep.
This would have been Mother's Day of 21. My mom was living with us at the time, and I got her a cameo from the Birdman Koko Beware, who did it from his backyard of his Georgia home. You could see his hose unspooled at his feet while he sat in what had to be a $7 Walmart lawn chair, and delivered my mother a message of how much he loved that she loved him. He wanted her to know that Frankie was doing just fine and was thinking about her this Mother's Day. And my mom, like, this is no exaggeration, it was the best Mother's Day present she received that year, and she claims the best Mother's Day present I've ever given her.
Man, you made points that day. Koko Beware on Cameo.
Oh, you're
That's
damn right.
Phenomenal. And I love the fact he's in his backyard. He's got the garden hose there. It's just, sitting in a Walmart, the old school Walmart lawn chair that, by the way, you can't find anymore for $7. And oh my God, that's phenomenal.
It tells you a lot about the way these celebrities think about Cameo, right? Like, this was just another chore he had to do that day.
Right. He's like, let me put down the garden hose and do this bleeping cameo real quick. And by the way, he said Frankie was okay. He didn't show Frank. I got the feeling Frankie's stuffed somewhere in a closet. Just saying.
No, well, parents live forever, right? Like, parents live like 70-something years. I would bet Frankie is doing okay, but he is nowhere around wherever Koko Beware is now. I'm sure he pawned that off on somebody at some point.
That or Frankie, when this guy's career's over, I got to go with I got to get an A-lister.
That's right. He found the next Birdman.
Exactly. I'm done with this guy.
I asked this question on Twitter earlier today, and we have a couple of good responses from Jason Kong. No favorite wrestler for my mom, but she very much enjoyed the Nation of Domination until Kama Mustafa transformed into the Godfather. At that point, Monday nights became more about Touched by an Angel.
Touched by an angel.
Do you remember the Nation of Domination, or were you out at that point?
I was working my way out then. By the time they popped, I'm familiar with them, but I really wasn't. I wasn't in like I used to be at that point. I was working my way out.
Yeah, the Nation of Domination was like it was a really like crude attempt at a Black Power kind of group, but that's where The Rock came to us from. And yeah, Kama Mustafa becoming the Godfather. I remember that night. Godfather was one of my absolute favorites, but that was sort of the beginning of maybe wrestling is not for kids anymore.
See, once we got The Rock and Stone Cold and Mankind, that's when once they came, I was back then. I was back.
Yeah,
I was in.
Too.
I grew up on the Hulkster and Superfly Snuka, Rowdy Roddy Piper and Piper's Pit. I was a kid. I love Piper's Pit, by the way. When he hit Snuka with coconuts, I can still watch that on YouTube and laugh hysterically. But and then I got back when Stone Cold and The Rock became a thing, and The Rock and Mankind had that 16-hour match to the death or whatever that was like as iconic. That's when I got back then.
I will tell you now, and this really is a testament to the work that the WWE was doing in that era. Is there anything more exciting than just hearing that glass break out of nowhere?
I know.
You know what's happening then.
I know. It's so good. To this day. This day.
One more quick one from Garrett Seawright. My mom had this very weird fascination with Rikishi. Of all the dudes in the late 90s and early 2000s that had muscles on top of muscles, she thought the very robust Polynesian man was the most attractive. And as an adult, I now realize it's okay to keep some things from your kids.
I'm going to say this. All right, look, if I was in the WWE at that time, and I'm going to wrestle Rikishi, and you tell me I need to lose?
Oh, my God. No way. I'm not doing it.
No, me either. You got it. The money you have to put in my bank account to lose like that to Rikishi? No.
So, for people that don't know, Rikishi was... To call him obese is kind to the obese. He was a big man.
Gigantic.
And his finishing move used to be he would lay you up against the turnbuckle and he would rub his butt in your face.
They called it the stink face, didn't they, or something? The stink face.
The stink face. I thought that's what it was, but I was sitting here thinking, I think it's called the stink face, but surely it was more creative than that.
No, that was it.
It was called the stink face.
That was it.
All right, I know we are not alone. So 803-404-6100. Give us a call or text us for Mother's Day. Let's embarrass our moms, or maybe share our mom's joy with the entire state of South Carolina. Who was your mom's dude in the WWF, WCW? Hell, we can fast forward to today, to TNA, what's the other big wrestling promotion now? AEW?
Yeah, that's it.
I just want to hear, who was your mom's guy that she would go nuts for?
And we will get back also to talk more South Carolina, the loss to Georgia last night, and moving forward now in a series. You're already behind the 8 ball with a loss in game one. Now you got to put together 2 little mini 1-game win streaks to get yourself back together before you go to Tennessee. Terry Ford, Demetri.
That's the way you got to think about it, right?
Exactly. I had to add it up in my head. Demetri Ravenos is here. By the way, Captain Dave has a great wrestling story about his sister that he told me off the air. Dave's a wrestling maniac. Who knew? We'll get that in here coming up, too. It's a halftime show. We're rolling till 3 here on the game. Our Firehouse Subtext of the Hour coming up here in just a minute. Terry Ford, Demetri Ravenos, David Dare. We're hanging here till 3 on the game, then the post-game show will take over. Coming up, football, 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. Paul Feinbaum will hop on with us at 1 o'clock, obviously from the Paul Feinbaum Show. We carry on our sister station here in Columbia, ESPN 1320, and also the SEC Network. Demetri and Paul are just our buds. You're chums.
We are. He texts me all the time to tell me that he read something I wrote and was thinking about me today.
All right, so what we'll do, we got Paul coming up, and we'll let you get that started because you and Paul are buds. So I'll just start.
You think Paul's mom has a favorite wrestler?
Yeah, I was going to say you have to ask Paul. You have to ask him, does his mom have a favorite? Because you and him are boys. You got to say,
yeah,
Paul, before we get started, we're doing this little topic today for Mother's Day. Did your mom have a favorite wrestler? You got to ask him.
Okay, so here's the thing, and I don't know if this is true. I think I could be wrong about this. I think his wife is friendly with a super famous wrestler. I think she's friendly with one of this wrestler's ex-wives. I need to see if that's true or not before I ask him live on air.
I think you should ask him that question on the air. Forget this other one. This one's juicier, man.
Yeah. Might be the way to go.
Sure, I'm sure they go over big with Paul. All right. Here we go. Firehouse Subtext of the Hour at 803-446-100. We got a few. Mom will never admit she liked wrestling. Now, as a grandma, bless her soul, our favorite wrestler was Wahoo McDaniel. How about that?
Yes, sir.
Wahoo McDaniel. I'm telling you. I remember my uncle. My uncle was big on Johnny Weaver, like our buddy Joe, who called in the first hour of the show. And my uncle loved Wahoo McDaniel. And my uncle Boyd, he thought it was real. Okay.
So sure.
My Uncle Boyd bought in, right? Like you couldn't sit next to him because he put you in like a headlock. All of a sudden, like he's got you on the floor in a preacher hold. All of a sudden he pile drives you into the floor. Uncle Boyd was violent during wrestling. He loved Wahoo McDaniel. It was crazy.
I love that, man. That's fantastic. Do you remember oh shoot, what I think the wrestler just went by the name Dr. D, the guy that got into a fight with John Stossel live on air for Stossel suggesting it was all fake?
Yeah, I remember that. Yes. Yeah. Well,
Stossel Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Keep going with Stossel because I'm thinking of something in my head. Go ahead.
I was going to say, Stossel is just a smug jerk anyway, so I can't imagine that there was not like a ticking time bomb on that dude getting punched. But the fact that it happened backstage at a WWF event, not only is it hilarious, like I was watching this on Dark Side of the Ring, man, it derailed Dr. D's career. He was supposed to be the dude that he and Hogan were going to be passing the belt back and forth in the mid-'80s. To determine, who was the company's superstar. And after that, he was just unemployable in the wrestling world.
Well, didn't Stossel show up on the show with a neck brace on or something? When they like Hugh Downs brought him on, he was wearing a neck brace or whatever.
He was wearing a neck brace. I believe he showed up to court in a neck brace, if I remember right.
Yeah.
Like Stossel was just the epitome of no substance, all flash, as far as reporters go back then.
And look, and I know the people at ABC. When old Dr. D dropped them, they were all going, yeah, yes, yes.
Barbara Walters high-fiving people in the office.
Exactly. All right, here's another one off the text line, our Firehouse Subtext the Hour. Don't forget Fritz von Erich. His claw move was great until it was turned on him and would put him in a deep sleep.
Oh, man, the Von Erichs, I think, are the great story of what never was, right? Like they were all built for moms to fall in love with. His sons were all like gorgeous specimens of humanity.
All the hair and everything else. Even Fabio thought they were hot.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. and didn't like the Von Erichs have all these awful dark things happen in their lives?
Yeah, a bunch. Like I think there were 4 sons or maybe 5, and I want to say 3 of them overdosed. I think there were 5 sons and 3 of them died before age 40.
Yeah, it was just a whole weird thing with that family. Another one here.
Yeah, well, happy Mother's Day, everyone.
Yeah, that's a delightful part of the topic. And also the same texture came back with, and I'm going to screw up. I always screw up the name. The guy that did the original Claw, Baron von Raschke, right?
Rashke, yeah.
Rashke, yep, the original claw guy. Baron von Rashke. Did you ever try the claw on your friend? Did you ever actually try the claw on somebody?
The claw is one of the many wrestling moves I have tried on friends. I was in college at the peak of the Attitude Era, and the number of friends that, and I swear this is true, I had multiple friends that ended up having to go to the emergency room because we were trying to do the Ken Shamrock leg lock on people, and we didn't realize that, like, that's a real UFC move. And if you do not temper it for an audience, you're going to break or at the very least twist someone's ankle.
Nice work by you guys. But yeah, it's a wrestling move. You don't think it's like real? You're like, this will be fun.
Yeah, exactly.
You like the claw. I mean, you try to every now and then you try the claw on 500 people, and it would actually work on one person, right?
Right.
And you're like, I didn't think it would work. Oh my god.
That's fantastic.
It actually worked. I remember I pile drive the dude once. Oh, jeez. Thank God it was on like dirt. I didn't realize you could really break somebody's neck doing that. It's just wrestling fun. We'll come back. Football in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. Paul Feinbaum is next here on the halftime show. Terry, Demetri, and Dave here on the game. Halftime show. Terry Ford, my special bud guest, hang out with me, dude. Demetri Ravenos today till 3 o'clock. Obviously, his wife has no idea what he's really doing today. She thinks he's hard at work, and he's bumming around with me. It's a 1 o'clock hour, always here on the Halftime Show. Football, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. And, Demetri, there's no one better to talk football in the SEC than Paul Feinbaum. And Paul Feinbaum jumping on with us now. Paul, thanks for hanging on with us here on the Halftime Show on the game. We appreciate it.
Oh, it is my pleasure. Thank you guys for inviting me.
All right, Paul, I've been told since you and I are friends, I have to ask you our Mother's Day question that we've been asking all of our listeners today. So bear with me. Please don't hold it against me for the long term. But we've been asking folks who their mom or wife, I'll throw that caveat in there as well, who secretly was their favorite wrestler, or do they have one?
I don't think my wife could name one wrestler. My mother probably could, my late mother. My mother was the kind of mother that I fully expected back when I grew up to be down at wrestling on Monday night, picking up a folding chair and hitting Jerry Lawler over the head.
Fantastic. We're talking to Paul Feinbaum. You can, of course, hear him in the afternoons on our sister station, ESPN 1320, and see the show on the SEC network. Paul, we're basically here now. We are in the time of the expanded SEC as we start to talk about spring football. I wonder, here in Columbia, we all have our thoughts and expectations going into each season about what Carolina can be, what the ceiling is for them, what the floor is for them. Realistically, as somebody that looks at the conference as a whole, what kind of pressure going forward is there going to be on Shane Beamer? Is it still about expecting bowl games every year, or is it just about keeping your head above water now that the conference is that much harder?
I hope it's not about bowl games because mostly in the SEC, if you only get to a bowl game, that will likely make sure that you're not at the bowl game because you've been fired. So I think it's beyond that. The one thing about Beamer, though, is I think he's bought enough goodwill 2 years ago with that 14-day stretch of knocking off Tennessee and Clemson that he's still liked by fans, and that's really when you get in trouble is when you are no longer liked. He's the king of the media room. He's always good copy, as we used to say in the newspaper business. But I wouldn't spend too many chips on this season, is what I'm trying to say, because I think another bad season and then he will be squarely on the hot seat. But not this season.
Paul Feinbaum hanging out with us here on the Halftime Show on the game in Columbia, Florence, Myrtle Beach. Terry and Demetri and Dave are on the show. Paul, we talk about coaches and hot seats. The no-brainer feels like at Florida, that schedule's a bear. Billy Napier, what little goodwill you get in Gainesville is almost gone. At the end of the year, is Billy Napier hanging on, or are we going to be seeing Florida hire another head coach again?
Call me on Saturday night of the first game against Miami. And if Florida loses that game, then go ahead and book it. He's not going to survive. And it is the schedule. But, what we deal with right now, and this is the part that you either love or hate as a college football fan, is that Billy Napier's had a great offseason. We had Graham Mertz on our program recently, and, he's hyping how great everything is. And by the way, that's fine, but it does not last until the first game. Once the first game's over, all of that goodwill will go out the window if you haven't succeeded. His real problem is the schedule on the back end is so difficult. So the reason why I say the Miami game is important, because Miami could be good. I mean, you ever heard that one before? He's still got Tennessee at the end of the first 6 games on the road. He's not winning that game. I know what happened last year. It's not happening again. And then it's the gauntlet that everybody has talked about ad nauseum, and I don't know how you survive that gauntlet. So he's a good talker, but talk will be very cheap in Florida after 3 bad years if he hasn't pulled this off.
When you talk to coaches, Paul, particularly when you have conversations with them that are not on the air, I wonder what you hear from them about the way they view not just NIL, but the way their fans react to NIL. Certainly, we all got our laughs and our jokes in about Brian Kelly's comments that LSU is not looking to pay for players, buy players in the portal. I mean, we all made our jokes that it's a convenient excuse for not being successful there. But I wonder if there is some level of frustration with coaches of fans not getting that the portal is not that simple. It's not a matter of if this quarterback cost X, all we had to do was offer X plus one.
Demetri, I feel qualified to answer that question. A week ago, I interviewed one head coach. Wednesday, I interviewed 3 sitting SEC head coaches and talked to 2 former SEC head coaches. And they all hate where we are. And what they really don't like is the fact that they have to spend an enormous amount of time literally begging for money. And they hate it. Some will say it on the air, some will not, but they all collectively don't like it. And it's not like they're going to someone new, like there's some new software king that just moved into Columbia, South Carolina. They're going to the same people they've already hit up. And it gets tiresome, and they'd rather be doing other things, but it's the reality of where we are right now. And if you don't bring in that money, you're not going to survive. And Brian Kelly, if you listen to the whole context, was being very specific. It was easy to make fun of him, and we all did collectively, but he was talking about interior defensive linemen, to be more specific, that he lost 2 players on. But the rest of these guys are – but on the other hand, I don't care that they're not enjoying themselves. They're all making $8 to $12 million a year. And it doesn't bother me at all that they can't, go to the beach or go to the lake or play golf. I mean, and actually have to work like the rest of the slobs.
Paul Feinbaum hanging out with us.
I said this real quick, Terry. I said this on a show here on the Game not too long ago. Paul, it is really interesting that you can go to any industry, right? And even if your job title is the same and your job description is the same as it was 5 years ago, you're not doing the same job, which is why I think that these coaches find such little sympathy and so much frustration from the fans is everybody's job changes.
No, Demetri, you've covered the sports media for a long time at a high level. And what is moving the needle right now at big companies like the one I work for? It's those who can do something other than one thing.
Exactly.
And it's the same way in coaching.
Exactly.
You better be able to fundraise.
Paul Feinbaum hanging out with us, talking some college football here on the Halftime Show on the Game. Paul, I guess to that end, as we move forward with House versus the NCAA, which will be settled for billions, so you don't have to pay even more billions if you're the NCAA. The whole model of revenue sharing and coming up with a collective bargaining agreement with players and other entities and salary caps and all these sort of things. Are you down with all this, or just make your head explode?
Well, it does make my head explode because we have to talk about it, because I feel pretty comfortable in saying there's not one person listening to this show right now who cares. And instead, I mean, I welcome our show. Here we're back with Ross Dellinger, and, he goes on. By the way, Ross is great, but, he goes on for 15 minutes talking about all this money and the fans going, who's going to start quarterback for South Carolina? Who's going to be wide receiver? Because the financial part of it is mind-numbing, but that's all presidents and that's all coaches and athletic directors and commissioners talk about. And, I mean, frankly, I wouldn't give 2 rips if the NCAA collapsed and sank at the bottom of the ocean with the Titanic. It's a worthless organization, except in the House case, if I could be technical for a moment, there are a number of conferences that are also involved. That's why we're talking about this. Otherwise, the NCAA would be out of business. But it's more, they'll figure it out. It's not going to be done with federal legislation. I interviewed Tommy Tuberville the other day, who's as hard as this may be to believe, the former Auburn coach is now the senior United States Senator in Alabama. And he told me that we're about to get this thing done in Washington. No, he's not. He told me that 2 years ago. And besides, I mean, this is the same guy that didn't understand the three divisions of government. Between a couple of years ago, between the executive, the judicial, and the legislature. So I'm not trusting him to tell me what's going to happen at the U.S. Congress. But the bottom line is, paying players somehow through a revenue share is probably where we're going next.
Paul, before we let you go, and we're talking to Paul Feinbaum, you can hear him at 3 o'clock today on our sister station, ESPN 1320, and see him on SEC Network. You and I talked a couple of years ago, and I asked you if there was any chance that Paul Feinbaum would show up in the new EA Sports college football game. You told me later that your agent said, wait a minute, are you going to be in that game? So now I have to ask, the day that they have released the cover image, will Paul Feinbaum be in EA Sports NCAA Football 25?
I will not. And I know there was a conversation about using a talk show as an element, which, by the way, I think we both agree would be pretty funny. But it did not make, again, as great as this game is going to be, you've got to get your software geeks and nerds get together who don't understand what any of us do. So we will not be in the first edition. Therefore, I refuse to answer any more questions about the game.
You could be the John Madden of the college EA Sports game.
I feel like they really missed an opportunity to have something. I know this will sound terrible, guys, but to have the usual suspects, Fowler and Herb Street, all doing what you expect them to do. Can you imagine? And by the way, I don't even want to be on the game. I want our callers to be on the game. Can you imagine
Right.
legend after a bad play calling for the coach's firing? I mean, to me, that would be exciting.
Paul Feinbaum.
I want to hear the AI following following the players' dynasty. I want to hear I-Man get fired up about the center depth chart at Coastal Carolina.
Yeah. I'm sure it will be successful, but when they're looking at their quarterly earnings next year, I will remind them, and I hope you will too, Demetri, how much more successful they could have been.
Paul, we appreciate you, man. We know you got a lot to do, so thanks a lot for hopping on today. Paul Feinbaum with us from ESPN Radio and the SEC Network. Thanks, Paul.
It was my pleasure, guys. Thank you. Anytime.
Thank you. And, of course, Paul on ESPN Radio and our sister station, ESPN 1320 afternoons, and also the SEC Network as well. All right, we'll get back in here. It's football in the 1 o'clock hour. We're going to get you some Shane Beamer sound. Shane, of course, doing the tour with the Welcome Homes. We got some Shane sound. Wanting people at South Carolina for the right reasons. We'll hear that from Shane coming up next. Terry Ford, Demetri Ravenos, David Ayers here. We're rolling Nothing But Football, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors in the 1 o'clock hour right here on the game. halftime show. Terry Ford, Demetri Ravenos hanging out with us today for Tyler's. Or letting Tyler run around Darlington and have the time of his life. We think he'll be back. We don't know. He might not come back from Darlington. But if he does, he'll be here Monday with us. Because, somebody could offer him a gig, and all of a sudden it's like, you know how the carnies go from town to town?
That's right.
Tyler could get offered a gig with one of those teams and gone.
Tyler at Darlington is like Charlie in the Chocolate Factory, right?
Yes.
He's just floating up in the ceiling because of his giggles, as happy as he is to be there.
Yes, like 22-year-old Terry Ford at the beer garden. Yes.
Right.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, yeah, Tyler, we'll be back on Monday. We'll see. Football in the 1 o'clock hour. We're going to get to some Shane Beamer here in a second, but we're also going to continue our little tribute to moms for Mother's Day that Demetri came up with. In honor of Mom, who is your mom's favorite wrestler?
Yeah, Dave from Casey says, my mom loved her some Val Vetus. Oh, yeah, the porn star wrestlers were always huge with the moms.
Oh, yes. Now, I'll tell you, I won't lie.
Val Vetus, Ravishing Rick Rude.
Ravishing. Look, that's the one. Like, well, I'm going to use my mom, for example, because my mom could care less about wrestling. But if she was walking through the living room and, like, Ravishing Rick Rude was standing there, Mom will pretend like she's got to do something in the living room all of a sudden. Oh, I better straighten up those magazines on the coffee table.
That's right. I met Shawn Michaels a few years ago, and I joked with him that my mother will never forgive you for what you did to Marty Jannetty when they were together as the Rockers on WWF. Shawn Michaels' betrayal of Marty Jannetty was a big deal, and Shawn Michaels started laughing and said, "Did the Playboy pictorial not change her mind?" Or not Playboy, I'm sorry, Playgirl. Shawn Michaels was in Playgirl.
That's right. Maybe Playboy too. Who knows?
Maybe, yeah. He was everywhere in the 90s.
That's funny. Because it was so good for some reason. And my girlfriend has no use for wrestling either. She could care less. But for some reason, if like a Shawn Michaels will show up on the screen, she's all of a sudden interested in something in the living room or the basement or wherever it's on. It's like, well, I thought you didn't like this. I don't. I think it's stupid. Then why are you staring at the screen drooling?
That's right. Shawn Michaels was the guy for all of us kids at that time that realized, oh, we're going to have a lot of body hair like our fathers do. Shawn Michaels gave us all hope because for whatever reason, everyone in that promotion had to be clean shaven except Shawn Michaels and his friggin' sweater of chest hair that he had.
Finally groomed, by the way.
That's right. All
right, so we'll keep going with that. 803-446-100. We'll take your calls, text, and also you can hit us up on Twitter at 1075 The Game as well. Twitter X at 1075 The Game. All right, we continue with football in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. Dave, let's hit this cut four. Shane Beamer has been doing a lot of welcome homes and really been a lot of mic time this week for Shane. Here is Shane talking about, I guess, the type of people and players he wants to bring to South Carolina for the right reasons.
I always want to make sure that that in the recruiting aspect of it, whether it be recruiting high school seniors or whether it be recruiting transfers, that they're choosing South Carolina for the right reasons. I want a guy that wants to be here for the right reasons. And I understand that there's a monetary part of it, there's an NIL part of it that's just a factor now. I get it. But when we're playing the University of Georgia, we're playing Clemson or whoever, and it's 4th and 1 in the fourth quarter, and we got to have it. I want the guy that came to South Carolina for the right reasons and not because he got the best NIL deal from us. And to me, I truly believe this. I tell people all the time, I believe you win with people, and I want a bunch of championship people around me. And then be able to retain those guys also, because tampering and the transfer portal, it's a thing. And someone that that came to South Carolina for the right reasons, that is from this region, that wants to be here and leave a legacy, whether it be Asia Wilson in women's basketball or whether it be Luke Doty and Tonka Hemingway and some of those guys I just mentioned in football, guys that are here for the right reasons. We've been able to keep here in this place they're passionate about. And the more that we can recruit guys like that and win with those people, I think the better off we're going to be.
All right, so I'll let you go first because, I'm a great host. I'll let you go first, and then I'll jump in. Go ahead. Your thoughts on what Shane just said.
Okay, listen, I like Shane, and I think he has been good for the morale of the fan base here. This sounds like a man telling a fairy tale, right? On 4th and 1 against Georgia in a gotta-have-it situation. Call me crazy. I want the best football player, regardless of why he wants to be here. And ideally, everything he's saying is right. You want guys that are bought into the program, that are bought into being a part of the Gamecock football family tradition, et cetera, et cetera. You want guys that it means something to them. But in this day and age of college football, forget the portal with recruiting being what it is and the end goal for so many of these guys being what it is. If there is an opportunity to improve, don't you have to take it regardless of what it is that the recruits' end game or long-term view of South Carolina is?
I think what Shane Beamer is saying, and kind of even what Brian Kelly's saying, I mean, in a perfect world, that's what every coach wants those players, right? You want players who are playing for the front of the jersey more than the back of the jersey. You want players who are playing, for your school or whatever. I mean, that's kind of the perfect world, right? For all coaches, is you want guys who are playing for the university. Teammates want dudes in a perfect world that are playing for the brotherhood. Fans want guys who are playing because they love the school, right? And they love their algebra class or whatever. I mean, that's almost like the things you have to say, even though I think we all know the truth. And we'll use Jadeveon Clowney for an example. If Jadeveon Clowney walks down into Steve Spurrier's office and says, "Look, dude, I'm going to be quite upfront with you. I'm here for me. I'm here to get better, be here as long as I got to be, and then I'm rolling to the NFL." If you're Steve Spurrier and you got a 5-star freak standing there in front of you, what are you going to say? Well, kick rocks. No, of course not. Right? Of course not.
Well, and see, that's the thing. Like, I think the reality, not even of modern college football, this has been true forever. We could just see it right now. Think about all of the Bama players that entered the portal the second Saban said he was retiring, or all of the Washington players that entered the portal the second Kalen DeBoer took the Alabama job. I think that as fans, and I think Shane knows better than this. You're right. He is saying it the way he has to. But I think as fans, we can sometimes forget that these kids don't love the school or the team or the culture the way we do. They are committing to a dude. And so it shouldn't be a surprise when the dude cannot provide something he told you he would, or he is moving on to something different, that all these kids hit the portal and look for a better place for them.
Sure.
I don't think not being all about Carolina first is ever something anybody can hold against Carolina players, because I think you are going to find that is the case largely across college football.
No, I think it's everywhere. It's not just a thing for South Carolina. It's everywhere. Because every fan wants the player to love the school the way they love the school. It's like professional sports. You want, your guy to love your favorite team like you do. It's human nature.
Right.
And the coach wants you to love the program, obviously, because in everybody's mind, if you love it, you're invested, you're making that 4th down stop, right? I mean, it's sort of like that Pleasantville world that we all want to be in sports, right? That all the guys that play for our favorite team are perfect.
Frustrating.
Right.
That's what's so frustrating to me is like Shane and Brian Kelly and Dabo Swinney, all these guys have to know fans are smarter than I think these statements sometimes give us credit for. It drives me bananas that you're trying to sell the idea of, oh, I love guys that want to be here, and loving Carolina is going to be what puts you over the top versus being an actual 5-star linebacker. We would always have the guy that loves Carolina. We'd always rather have him more. I think that's a very silly, like, transparent thing that you say when you know the interviewer is not going to push back on you.
Well, I think the flip side, though, is And I get this, and Kelly said it, and I think Shane kind of said it. You don't want guys just showing up because you offered them the biggest bag either, right? You want a guy that wants to come in. Well, because you want guys who want to you want to make sure they're invested in playing football and not just getting their money. And I think that's what everybody's scared of, right? And that's why these coaches are saying it. They're scared in this new world they really don't know a lot about, that dudes are just showing up because you're offering more than someone else, and you got your money, and now you're like, hey, bro, I got paid. And I think everyone's scared of that. Like in the NFL, it's the same thing. You're scared that you paid a guy a lot of money and now he's not invested because he got paid. I think some of that's trickling down into collegiate sports, Demetri, because they don't know this world yet. And that's what scares them is guys are just coming to their school for the money and they're not going to be invested like they want them to be invested. Does that make sense?
It does. I tell you what.
Dude, hold the thought. We got to take a break.
Because I do want to sort of.
Yeah, hold the thought.
Yeah, and I do want to give people the flip side of this.
Yeah,
All right,
hold the thought real quick. We're going to get back to it. All right, we'll continue football. We'll talk about this and Dabo and what's going on at Clemson in the transfer portal, which is nothing. We got that coming up next. Halftime show, Terry, Demetri, and Dave here on the game.
He's not back yet, so if you wanted to... Oh, there he is. Never mind.
Halftime show. Terry Ford, Demetri is here for Tyler today. Well, Captain Dave is here as well as we are rolling up until 3 o'clock doing football here in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. We'll get back to Carolina baseball. Tough night at Founders last night. 14-10, Georgia gets the W. Tonight, 5:15 pregame, 5:30 first pitch. It's that, what do I call it again? It's in your best interest to win game tonight.
Yeah, not quite must win, but boy, we can't have you losing.
Yeah, you can't lose. I'm not going to say it's a must, but you can't lose. Game.
That's right.
At Founders tonight. Again, 5:15 pregame, 5:30 first pitch here in Columbia and also in Myrtle Beach. We've been talking about Shane Beamer. We just ran the clip of Shane talking about basically he wants players who want to be at South Carolina, want to be Gamecocks, and not just to come in and get as much NIL money as possible. And we were both kind of saying, hey, we get it. And that's what coaches say and want in a perfect world. But also, if a five-star kid shows up at your doorstep and says, I'll come here, for my reasons, you are apt to take that kid.
Yeah.
And we were just talking about, and I'll let you expound after I just reset it. I think coaches, and the reason they're bringing up this NIL, I don't want kids just showing up because we're giving the most money. Because, again, coaches are control freaks, right? The ultimate control freaks, right, Demetri?
Absolutely.
And now,
Yeah,
and they've
100%.
lost control because they have. It's now the player's world, not the coach's world anymore. So their fear is, because they can't control it and they don't know this world yet because it's still new, is players are going to want to show up and play for you just because you're giving the most money. And that's why I think we're hearing those very subtle statements by these coaches because they're petrified they're going to get players showing up playing just for the money and not for their university or their football program.
Well, I told you and Tyler this back when Nick Saban first retired is not only is it about the players having some control, but as long as the player compensation system that the NCAA sticks with is NIL, you're also giving up control to your boosters, right? And I think that's one of the things that really bothered Nick Saban and probably bothers a lot of these coaches. Jeff texted in, and he has a take here that I think is sort of where so many of these dudes, both coaches and fans, get stuck in their old ways. This is what Jeff says. Coaches are looking for team players, not hired guns. You can't have a locker room with a handful of hired guns. They will end up being a cancer that will do more damage to the program in the long run than any benefits they provide in the moment. I would ask Jeff, and I would ask this of Dabo Swinney, who again this year is taking no transfers and is citing this very similar line of thinking as to why. Why does it have to end up that way? Why are you convinced that a kid that would choose to spend his last year, 2 years in Columbia just because the Garnet Trust was able to put together $100 or $1,000 more than Georgia or Tennessee or whoever, why are you convinced that kid has to be a cancer? Why can it not be that this is a smart kid that recognizes his value and recognizes what it is he can bring to a team and believes he should be compensated fairly for that? Why can't it be a kid that is every bit as dedicated as someone that grew up in Lexington dreaming of being a Gamecock, but also has the added level of maturity to figure out what his market value is?
Well, I'll give you two examples of one where you're going, like for example, Spencer Rattler showing up at South Carolina.
Sure.
Rattler, obviously, reputation was damaged, left Oklahoma, went from being possibly a Heisman Trophy winner and a first-round pick to kind of like a punchline to some people, right? Or here's what's wrong with kids with big egos in high school. Look how they end up. Whatever narrative you want to play for Rattler, right? So Rattler could have went to a bunch of different places. He comes to South Carolina, whatever his NIL deal, that was it. But Spencer Rattler was phenomenal here. I mean, he was a leader off the field, kind of rebuilt himself on the field. And you never heard, oh, this guy, he's a cancer because he came in and got a lot of NIL money or this or that. You heard nothing but great things about Rattler. So there's the example of what you just brought up, right? That's the example, correct?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, I'll give you the backside that scares everyone, and that was Juice Wells.
Okay.
Juice Wells came in, had a phenomenal first year at South Carolina, then had the foot thing in his second year. Then there was a lot of things about with Juice Wells, the foot thing. Can he really play, or is he not playing because he wants to hold out, because he wants to go get paid somewhere else in NIL? Is this or that? And then you get that whole, is this guy, what's the culture like now? What's this about now with Juice Wells? So that was that kind of, again, the fear part that they're all scared of is you got a guy coming in for him. When he feels like playing, he kills it. But then once something goes sideways, he's more about him. And how does that lead to a culture where everybody else is going to be about them? That's that fear part.
Yeah.
So Rattler is the perfect, what you said. And I think there are a lot of guys that you described perfectly. I do.
Mm-hmm.
They're just, look, here's my market value in the world of 2024. I want to get my market value, right? That's what it is. But then everyone's scared of the Juice Wells example of a guy's going to come in, he's a me guy, he gets his, and he's going to mercenary his way out the door when it fits him, to hell with everybody else in the team. So that's kind of the scary.
I think if I'm an athletic director and my football coach me that, I start to wonder if I have the right football coach, right? And it's not because what you are saying about Juice Wells, I don't believe. I completely understand what it is you're saying. I think whether you are a quarterback or a head coach, if you are one of the leaders of this team, you have to have a certain level of ego to trust yourself to be able to change a guy's mind, whether that's a teammate or one of your players, to be able to steer the culture in the direction it wants to go. I don't buy this idea that coaches are afraid of kids knowing more because they are convinced there's going to be downside. They're afraid of kids knowing more because kids didn't used to know this much. I think that Dabo Swinney is a poster child for that kind of poisonous thinking. And it's the reason that I don't think anybody is out of line for wondering if the guy's days are numbered at Clemson now.
Well, I think what you have to do, man, you have to understand the room, right? This is the world now. You don't have to like it, but this is the world. If you're going to coach in college football or basketball or whatever, collegiate sport now, in some way, shape, or form, you've got to understand the old days are gone, man.
Right.
They're not coming back.
I mean, being a college football coach in 2024 is not unlike being a politician, right? You can sit there and talk about how great things were 10, 15, 20 years ago all you want. There is no force that can make it go back to 10, 15, 20 years ago, so you're wasting a lot of time and probably only preaching to the choir at that point. Rob texted in, and he has an interesting question. He says, I would ask Dabo, when his contract came up, did he take less money or more money to stay? Of course, he took more money and he listened to other options. And this is what I want to say to that. It's sort of along the line of the point that I'm trying to make here, Terry, is I genuinely wonder, given his stance towards NIL and towards player agency, are there other options for coaches like Dabo at this point? Because I don't believe there are. When Nick Saban retired, I told you on this show, my greatest nightmare is Dabo Swinney becomes the next head coach of Alabama because he's not built for it.
No, he's not evolving. And you've got to evolve. You just have to. You have to understand this is the world you're in now. And you've got to take all of your strengths of building culture and, having kids buy into what you are and who you are and what your program is. But now you got to do it differently, right? Demetri, you got to do it with a kid out of the transfer portal. But you should. Here's my thing with Dabo. What you have done being Dabo, you should think like this. I can have any kid buy in. I can go get a transfer portal kid to buy in, some kid who loves NIL to buy in, because my culture and my coaching acumen is so strong, I can make this work. That's why I thought he would think, but instead he's gone the 180 of, what he's doing now, which is basically not evolving.
Yeah, I mean, I think the clock is ticking on guys that think like this. I mean, I would guess that whether it is Saban in football, whether it was Jay Wright at Villanova in basketball, sometimes if you recognize that you are of a certain age, you've made a certain amount of money, and you're just not interested in putting in the effort to evolve, maybe you're better off stepping away. And I think there are guys that don't realize that's the case for them right now, that, like Dabo, are going to kick and scream their way out of employment. Because I think that you look at what Dion has done or not done at Colorado, I think there is one thing that has been proven you cannot do in the portal, and that is you cannot go out and get an entire offensive line. But if there's an opportunity for you to improve anywhere else, man, you should be mining the portal. If you're not, you are not doing your entire job.
Halftime show, Firehouse Up Text the Hour is next. Terry, Demetri, Dave here on the game. Time for our Firehouse Subtext of the Hour at 803-404-6100. We got a ton of things here. We're talking about coaching in college football. We're talking about, obviously, the most important topic, your mom's favorite wrestler in honor of Mother's Day. Also, right. Carolina baseball, tough 14-10 loss last night at home against Georgia. So, I mean, you are on the old text line there. Give us some Firehouse Subtext of the Hour, man.
Sure. So Jeff responded to my comment about not understanding why you assume every guy that is looking for a paycheck in the portal has to be a locker room cancer. I want to give him the chance to defend his point. He said, I'm not against kids getting paid or transferring, but the Wild West isn't doable. Rattler's a great example of it working. Juice Wells is the flip side. I'm for them signing for the calendar year. Transfer portal only open last 2 weeks of May. Transfer in the summer. You are contracted to the school for the rest of the year. I will say to Jeff, we don't disagree. I think, though, until the NCAA allows schools to pay these players directly instead of this NIL nonsense, you really are giving up that level of control. If you would just pay the kids directly, you could dictate this a little bit more, right? It would be a lot cleaner.
Yeah, I mean, that's where it's got to go, right? I mean, that you're going to end up, and I've been saying this for a while now, and every time you say the term collectively bargain, everybody throws up, right? But that's where it's got to go, right. Demetri. There's got to be a collectively bargained agreement. And then you stay out of court. Everybody knows what the deal is. You now have your guardrails again, and the Wild Wild West is all the guns are put away, and you can get back to having some sense.
When you are dealing with a entity that is as big as Major League Baseball or the NFL, as a player, you have to collectively bargain as part of a union for the base level of, your salary minimum, what the salary cap is, what percentage your position can take up of the cap, all that kind of stuff. All right. You've got to do that in the pro leagues. Now take college football, which is literally 4 times as big as the pro leagues. How are you going to do it without some sort of players union or collective bargaining in a way that gets things done quickly? It's impossible.
You've got to have everyone together. You agree, and I like to joke. And you go down to the notary down the street, Martha, who runs her notary out of the kitchen. Have her notarize the document, and everybody moves forward. And now you have rules, and you get rid of the Wild Wild West.
100%.
Absolutely.
Speaking of the NFL, did you see this news that Christmas Day games apparently are going to be on Netflix this year?
Uh-huh. Are you surprised?
That is, I am, only because I think I'm surprised that Amazon let it get to its top competitor, and I'm surprised because Netflix doesn't do sports. Like, this is wacky, man.
Get used to it. They're all going to start doing sports because all of a sudden they went, wow, you can make a lot of money on live sports. How about that?
Yeah. At what point does the NFL get to, like, boxing, right? Boxing used to be this country's biggest sport, and then more and more stuff started to move behind a paywall, pay-per-view at the time, right? And now boxing fans are lucky if they can find information about the biggest fights anywhere but the internet. Like, are we so far removed from that the NFL can afford to be this cocky?
Your first thought is, yeah, because the NFL is a cash cow, and they're far and away the behemoth regarding ratings in sports. Yeah, they can do whatever they want, right? But I don't know, because you're right. I will not pay $50, $100 for a boxing match. I refuse. I won't. I'll go to my buddy's house, let him pay for it, and I'll bring beer. I think there's a fine line the NFL needs to walk. If you want to dip your toe in this, that's fine, but you've still got to remember the massive amount of your audience is not streaming at this point in their lives, or they're not streaming to the level.
Can I tell you what
Go ahead.
I hear you. Can I tell you what my greatest fear is? My greatest fear is that, to your point, the majority of the audience is not streaming, even though you and I are. A lot of people are not. My greatest fear is that the NFL recognizes, in order to get people to pay for these things, they can only put their very best stuff on Netflix, on Amazon, make it a Peacock exclusive as opposed to being on NBC. And that way it is possible to still be an NFL fan without paying for all this extra stuff. But if you want the stuff that matters, that's going to cost you. I really worry that's where we're headed.
Well, I think that's the test balloons right now, isn't it? How many people sign up for Peacock to watch a game? Okay, how many people keep their subscription? That's like $4.99. Hell, you forget about it, right? And then all of a sudden you're getting dinged $5.
Yeah.
That's what we all do. And I think the test balloons and trial balloons like Netflix for Christmas, how many folks are going to, A, go to Netflix to watch it, and B, how many people are going to, more importantly for the NFL, how many people are going to sign up for Netflix to watch the games?
Yeah, I mean, that's the one that's crazy to be like, who doesn't have Netflix at this point? Like, as bad as the programming on Netflix is, it feels like we all have it.
You would think, but I guarantee you would go to places in this country, they go, what's a Netflix?
Fair.
I'm just telling you. All right, what's trending at 2 is coming up. We'll talk some more Carolina baseball coming up. Terry Ford, Demetri Ravenos, Dave Adair. We still got to get Dave's wrestling story in. That's coming up. Okay, so if you are thinking about redesigning your home, like you want to get maybe a new shower, new bathroom, maybe you want to get new fixtures, new lighting, how about some new appliances in the kitchen? Before you make your final decision, please, I beg of you, call the Nest. It's so simple, so easy. You call the Nest in the Vista. We'll talk more about it and give you the number in just a minute. Over 40 years, no, over 70 years of experience at the Nest at 1331 Gatson. They have experts for the lighting, for the fixtures, for the appliances, for the tubs, the showers. But call and set an appointment. Talk about your budget, your goals, your dreams, your vision. 803-978-2025. Go in, have a sit down with the folks at the Nest. They will accomplish what you want to get done. Do not make a move. Call the Nest first. Again, 803-978-2025. Halftime show, Terry Ford, Demetri Ravenos hanging out as Tyler is spending the day covered in motor oil at Darlington. He'll be back on Monday. David Dare is here punching up some buttons. I never knew, Demetri, David Dare and the David Dare family were such wrestling geeks. We're going to get a David Dare story here.
I need to hear this story.
You want to hear? Come on, Dave, real quick. He was telling me this off the air. I said, Dave, you got to tell this story on the air. All right, so we talked about your sister, and who was her favorite wrestler?
Originally it was Lars Anderson, but at the end, where in last days, it was Dean Ambrose of the Shield.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, and in fact, I have a picture of her and two of her youngest kids wearing these T-shirts. It says "Hounds of Justice" on them, which was, I guess, their slogan for the Shield or something, which is crazy. But so when she died, she had a funeral, right? And go up to my hometown, and this lady preacher, who had been in the church for like 40 years, when she goes, when I first moved here, Miss Jane, she told me she liked three things. First of all, she always sat in the same pew every week, her and her family, right? Secondly, she loved Elvis Presley, which is true. And third, she loved wrestling. So I always look at her, and I think the word pew, P-E-W, the pew, Elvis, and wrestling.
There you go.
That's my
How about that? Pew.
Oh, very good.
The pew.
Wrestling, fantastic.
I forgot to mention my grandmother's favorite wrestler.
Oh, your grandma had a favorite wrestler?
Yeah, I don't know if it was a joke or not, but Haystacks Calhoun.
Oh, my God. I remember him wearing his overalls.
Yeah, you weighed like 600 pounds.
Exactly. He always sat on somebody.
Yeah. I don't know if
we got a text. People sharing their mom's favorite wrestlers. This guy didn't leave his name, but he just put down 3 words: JYD, the Junkyard Dog.
Oh, JYD. JYD, very nice.
Indeed. Matthew texted in a good one, sort of in line with what Dave is talking about. That hard association with a loved family member and wrestling. He says, my sister-in-law dated Ricky Steamboat in high school up the road in Greenwood, South Carolina.
Whoa. Now, there are a lot of women that thought Ricky Steamboat was dreamy. They did.
And then Macho Man Randy Savage took care of that.
Oh, no doubt. I'll tell you, I had a neighbor. There was a woman who was a neighbor of mine, and she loved Degeneration X.
Sure.
The whole crew. She loved Degeneration X, all of them. And she'd even, for fun, do the suck it sign, which was kind of funny to watch a 30-some-year-old lady do a suck it sign in her backyard. But anyway, she loved Degeneration X. I remember that.
That's fantastic. Break it down, as they say.
She loved it.
I mentioned Elvis and just got a text. Save 20% store-wide on Shop Elvis during this Mother's Day.
They're always listening. They're always listening, Dave.
Oh, my.
I miss the Elvis rugs on the side of the road.
I miss the Elvis velvet paintings.
Yeah. Man. And they pop up everywhere and just start selling that stuff.
That was the beginning of NIL. No, seriously, her family sued all those people because they owned the imaging, and you can't paint a velvet picture of Elvis and sell it if we don't get any money.
There you go.
It's a true story. Look it up.
That's funny. I remember.
Fantastic.
I remember, like, you were a kid, you pull up at a gas station, some dude sitting in the corner over there selling Elvis rugs or Elvis paintings. Oh, man. All right. Anyway, so any other mom wrestling favorites real quick? Oh, they're on the old text line?
No great stories. We could hang on to some of these for the end of the hour in rapid fire,
Okay.
but no other great stories at the moment.
All right. And we've got a bunch of them, and keep them coming at 803-404-6100. Your mom's favorite wrestler, in honor of Mom on Mother's Day, because Mom and wrestling always go hand in hand. Absolutely. Yep. All right, what's trending at 2 here on the game, sponsored by Traditions Fine Jewelry and Gamecock Traditions. All right, look, we'll go back to last night, Demetri. You lose 14-10 to Georgia. It's a series that you need to win because you're going to Tennessee. Tennessee, right now, #1 in the country. They're playing in their little bandbox ballpark. And you don't want to go to Tennessee with the idea, okay, you really need to win 2 out of 3 if you want to hold on to the hope of hosting in the regional. You lost last night. Look, again, the old coaching cliche, now you got to have 2 one-game winning streaks. You start one tonight, and you got to get the other one on Saturday. Because if you lose the series to Georgia, now you're starting to, you might lose that spot to be able to host in the regional.
Yep, and the way that college baseball, the way the NCAA baseball tournament works is if you lose out on hosting, you're not necessarily just going down to the next line, right? Like they're probably not going to send Carolina out to, I don't know, Indiana to play Indiana State or California to play UCSB. They're going to try and keep them reasonably close. You're obviously not going to do the 1 and 2 seed from the same conference. So if they fall out of hosting, man, having to go to Greenville, North Carolina to take on ECU, having to go to Chapel Hill to take on UNC, like it suddenly becomes a lot more difficult to get into a super regional for the Gamecocks if they aren't a 1 seed and have the home field advantage.
Last night, look, the pitching struggled. Let's just not sugarcoat it. Everyone had issues in some way, shape, or form for the most part, except Chris Veach, who threw a clean inning in the 9th. Roman Kimball struggled right off the gate. Ty Good had some good moments, but ends up giving up 4 runs on 5 hits, a couple walks thrown in there, did strike out 7. Tyler Dean gave up a big home run. Drake Quinn, I mean, he was okay, but still gave up a couple runs in 3 innings. Going back to Ty Good, who's been the long man coming in for the opener, Roman Kimball here recently. Mark Kingston, let's get this cut real quick, Dave. Mark Kingston talking about Ty Good, cut 14.
Yeah, Ty pitched well, but 86 pitches in 4 innings, that's kind of, we've got to be creative with our guys because the old days of guys throwing 7 or 8 innings on 100 pitches, that's not anywhere anymore. Their guy threw 105 pitches, the second guy that came in 5 innings. Baseball culture now is you've got to be creative. And so we'll continue to look for the best ways to use our pitchers, and I thought Ty did a good job. So we're just going to have to continue to be creative and then maybe find unconventional ways to piece our pitching together.
Tonight or this afternoon, Eli Jones will take the ball. He's struggled his last 2 outings. Hopefully Jones can, get himself back to where he was earlier in the year. Because, look, George is more than Charlie Condon, Demetri. This is a lineup, I think we counted yesterday, 8 guys have an OPS of 900 or more. So it's not just shut down Charlie Condon and you win. This entire lineup can whoop you.
Yeah, and that's the thing, too, about when you put out 10 runs, even if you are ending up losing that game, to me, the real killer, the thing that makes it really tough to ever get into a groove is that right off the bat, as soon as the Gamecocks go on offense, they're playing catch-up because they're already down 4 to that potent Georgia defense. There's never a moment where you really feel like you're back in it because you're behind from the get-go.
Yeah, and the thing, too, that's got to be frustrating for Gamecocks, Gamecock fans, whatever, is okay, Georgia puts a 4 spot on you right away, but you come back and score 3. So they didn't get their shutdown inning. You came back, and now you're only down 1 despite a clunky first inning. But then Georgia rolls 3 more on you. And then you're like, oh, my God, we got this thing to a run. Now we're down 7-3, and we're battling back uphill again. And that's just the way this game was going. Even when you cut it to 7-4, then Georgia hits you with 3 in the 5th, and look at you now. You're down 10-4. And that second inning was the true killer because you gave back 3 runs after you cut it to 1 after the first inning. Your hope is get a shutdown inning and settle this thing down, keep the crowd in it, and, you gave up 3 more in the second.
You're 33-16 on the year now, looking up at a number of teams that are well ahead of you in the division. I don't want to put Mark's job on the line or anything like that. This is me asking you your opinion, Terry, not making an accusation. I want people to understand what I'm saying here before I say this. Was this supposed to be a year that was the proof that something consistent, a consistent winner was being built here? Is there some disappointment out of the fact that if they slip to a 2 seed and thus are not hosting a regional, we're kind of still in that EKG machine roller coaster, whatever you want to call it, of 1 up year, 1 down year, 1 up year, 1 down year, and there's never any real sustainable progress under Kingston?
I'm in the EKG machine now. I've never. that was a good one. That was a good one. I think here's the thing. First of all, and you know this, that this is a fan base that got really used to going to Omaha.
Sure.
Got very used to it under Ray Tanner. And they haven't been to Omaha in a long time. Matter of fact, since Ray left, there's been no trips to Omaha. So the patience level for that is very thin. Last year, South Carolina got to the Supers and lost to Florida, who went on and lost, in the finals to LSU in Omaha. So you got to a Super last year. And that's fine, but that's not good enough for this fan base. You follow me? That
right.
Last year was okay. You knocked on the door and you cracked it open a little bit. Now this year you got to kick it in. Now, is that fair looking at this team? The pitching was a question mark coming in. You thought you had enough offense maybe to overcome the pitching for a while you figured it out. Well, here you are this late in the season. Your offense is finally cooking, right? But your pitching, you still have question marks about who's going to be throwing on the weekend. And look, Ole Miss got it together out of nowhere a couple years ago and won the College World Series. So I'm not saying you can't do it. But at this point of the year, if you're still juggling balls in the air to try to figure out who your weekend starters are going to be, that's not a really good recipe to make you feel good about the postseason or even hosting for that matter right now when you're trying to sort through who your starters are going to be.
Yeah, well, I mean, especially when the majority of your games are being played in this conference. I mean, look at any sort of bracketology right now. I think the SEC has double the amount of projected number one seeds of literally everybody else. I think there are 8 projected number one seeds in this conference.
So we'll see. And again, you got to win these next 2 games, Demetri. It's not like do or die, but again, you put yourself in a really tough spot going on the road. And South Carolina has held their own on the road this year, but you're going to Tennessee, and they're the number one team in the country. They've been playing fantastic for a good bit of time now, and you got to go in there and try to pull 2 out of 3. I mean, so it's in your best interest, again, to win 2 out of 3 at home. Then if you could go, and even if you lose 2 out of 3, you go 6-6 against these 2 teams that are in top 5 RPI. I think that helps you. But if you lose 2 out of 3 to Georgia and you go lose 2 out of 3 to Tennessee, I don't know what's going to happen. So
I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves because obviously we're talking about how many questions there are around this team and just securing one of those number one seeds. But what happens if they go in and sweep Tennessee?
Then again, the roller coaster, the EKG machine, everything's okay. You go in, you sweep Tennessee. Now you're going to host, right? I think you feel like if you go and sweep the number one team in the country in their barn, you should host, no matter what happens in the SEC tournament. But that's the other caveat. If you lose to Georgia 2 out of 3, you lose to Tennessee 2 out of 3. If you make a run in the SEC tournament, a deep run, that helps you as well. But South Carolina has never been the SEC tournament's like a whatever. South Carolina's always focused on the playoffs and the postseason and the NCAAs.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I was thinking too, is what if you go in and let's say you split these remaining or these final 6 games, so you're 3-2 over the next 5, and you go in and you get knocked out your first 2 games of the SEC tournament. What did that really do? Did you undo everything you did right by winning 2 out of 3 against the number one team in the country to close out the year?
I feel like if you go to Tennessee and win, that's such a pelt, right? I mean, that's a skin to put on the wall. I think that would, if it's me thinking, I think that would trump going to the SEC tournament and underwhelming yourself. That's just me. That's what I would think would happen.
Yeah.
All right, we are going to come back in here.
Who knows more about this than you and I?
Yes,
Mark Etheridge.
Mark Etheridge. We're going to get Mark on next, who D1 Baseball covers the SEC. We're going to get Mark's thoughts on Carolina and the SEC in general as we're moving into the postseason real soon. Mark's coming up next. Terry Ford, Demetri Ravenos, David Dare. We're hanging out here on the halftime show till 3 here on the game.
Hey, do you have a number for him?
Halftime show. Terry Ford going to be hanging out. Demetri will be back with us here in just a minute. Dave's here pushing buttons. Right now, we are obviously talking Carolina baseball. Tough night of Founders last night, a 14-10 loss to Georgia. Big weekend in the SEC. Next couple weekends, gigantic weekends in the SEC. So many teams jockeying for postseason position. Let's get a guy in here who knows a heck of a lot about more than we do. Mark Etheridge from D1 Baseball covers the SEC. Mark, thanks for jumping in, man. We appreciate it.
Yeah, anytime, guys.
All right, so let's start with South Carolina. You got this home series with Georgia, then you go on the road to Tennessee. you're, I guess, I'm not saying teetering, but, right now you're kind of fighting to host, and a lot of other things have to happen with other teams as well. But let's just focus on South Carolina. Let's go worst case scenario first. Let's say you lose 2 out of 3 against Georgia, then you lose 2 out of 3 at Tennessee. What does that do for South Carolina's hopes to host? Obviously, the SEC tournament could help them as well, but just to stick with those 2 regular season series.
Yeah, at 15-15, it's going to be really hard to host. That's the conference record. I mean, South Carolina's got 13 wins now. If they only get 2 more in these next 5 games, they would put them at 15-15. And it has happened. Only one of the 12 15-win teams since 2012 has hosted. That was Florida in 2022, and they made it to the SEC tournament finals, right, and had an RPI of 12. So that's an unlikely path, right, to be able to get there. So the path for South Carolina is, they either got to come back and win this series, win the next 2 games against Georgia, or they've got to go on the road at the number 1 team in the nation and take that series to get, to get those 3 wins. So I think that's the key, is finding a way to rebound and win this weekend. Obviously, Georgia's no pushover; they're a really good team, but I don't think you want to have to go into Knoxville to win a series to host.
Mark Etheridge hanging out with us from D1 Baseball, covers the SEC here on the Halftime Show on the Game. All right, obviously Tennessee's been playing really well. I mean, 4 of the top 10 teams in D1 Baseball's top 25 from the SEC, 5 of the top 10 in RPI are from the SEC. Mississippi State's been kind of flying under the radar here, Mark. No one's really talking about them like the casual baseball fan, but you go, wow, they're 14-10 in league. Where did this come from? Talk about Mississippi State for a minute.
Yeah, it's been an interesting year. The last 2 years have not been good in Starkville since they won the whole thing, and Chris Lamonis was definitely feeling the heat. And, even earlier this year, they dropped some games they should have won. They certainly were expected to win and just weren't really playing that well. And they figured it out. They're pitching at extremely high level. Justin Parker, who Gamecock fans are familiar with, has done an incredible job as the new pitching coach. And Carl Stephen, who's a Purdue transfer, has emerged as an ace. And then there's Gerangelo Sanja. He's the ambidextrous pitcher. He's been really good this year, especially down the last month or so. And he's an interesting guy because he's the switch pitcher, but he's been primarily right-handed lately. He against a few left-handed batters, he'll flip over, just to give him a different look. But he's up to 98 miles an hour with his fastball, and he's got plus breaking stuff. He's just a really interesting player to watch, and one of the more unique players that have come through the SEC in a long time. And because of that, I think Mississippi State has gone from a just middle of the pack team to one of the better teams because they've got those 2 guys at the top of the rotation, and they're in great shape to host. They have a really tough matchup. They go to Arkansas this weekend. If they can avoid getting swept, they get Missouri at home next week, and Missouri may not have anything to play for. So that would be a great opportunity for them to collect wins. And I think Mississippi State's the kind of team, if they get to 17 wins in the conference, I think, they're going to host. And that's only 3 wins, right? So if they get one at Arkansas and 2 over Missouri, which you'd certainly favor that to happen, I feel like their RPI would be in the teens, and they would earn a host spot.
Mark Etheridge hanging out with us talking SEC baseball from D1 Baseball here on the Halftime Show on the Game. Obviously, Kentucky has been the, oh, my God, we didn't see that coming team this year in what they've done. But Georgia also, what have they got picked 6th preseason in the SEC East? And you have a first-year coach. You got this offense with just ton of guys with OPS over 900. Their pitching's gotten better. Talk about the job that's been done at Georgia with a first-year guy. Yeah,
Wes Johnson's done an incredible job his first year. I I think we felt like he would improve their pitching staff. I mean, he was a big league pitching coach. He's been one of the, I guess, the forerunners of all the analytics and learning how to use your body to pitch more efficiently. But no one saw this offense coming. I mean, the concern for Georgia, we knew Condon was good. We didn't know Charlie Condon was going to be this good. I mean, he's got 34 home runs. He's homered 8 straight games. I mean, he's having a generational kind of year. But we thought that maybe there wouldn't be enough around him and teams just wouldn't pitch to him. Well, that hadn't been the case. Georgia has one of the best offenses and one of the deepest lineups in the conference. It's more than just Charlie Condon. And, you know, as you saw last night, he scored 14 runs, and certainly Condon played a role in that. But, I mean, that's the way it's been all year. They've hit 1 through 9. They've mixed and matched different guys off the bench. I mean, it's been a really impressive offensive attack, and their pitching is improving. It didn't really look like it last night, I guess, but over the last probably half of the conference season, they're just so much better than they were, you know, early on. And this is a team. Their RPI climbed up to, I think it's number 4 right now. If they get to 16 wins, which, you know, they've got to either win one more, you know, this weekend against South Carolina and then win the series, you know, no, really they only need one more against Florida next weekend. So, I mean, that's a great spot for them to be at this point. It is an extreme likelihood that Georgia will earn one of those 16 host spots.
All right, our last minute, Mark. SEC is filled with good teams. Obviously, tournament baseball isn't the same as regular season baseball. But if I said take your entire bank account, my friend, and put it on one team in the SEC to make it to Omaha, who would be that one team in your mind?
I would say Texas A&M. I just think they have the most balance. Tennessee has a better lineup, I think, but Texas A&M is just right there. They're right behind them. I think Arkansas has the best pitching. But if I had to pick a second team, it would probably be Texas A&M. So they also play good defense. I just think they're solid, right? Where some of the other teams have vulnerabilities, A&M, even though they lost last weekend at LSU, I feel like on the whole, they are the team with the fewest weaknesses and are the least prone to have a clunker.
Very nice. Mark Etheridge, D1 Baseball, covers the SEC. Thanks a lot for jumping in, and hopefully you don't block our number, and we'll call and bug you again down the road here as everything starts to get juicy.
Yeah, it's a fun time of year, isn't it?
Yeah, thanks, Mark. We appreciate you, my friend. Have a good weekend. All right, we will jump back in here, we'll drag Demetrius back in, and we will switch gears, get back to our big thing today, and we'll talk more, obviously, we're talking Carolina baseball and some football, but Mother's Day is upon us. And it's obvious to ask the question, who's your mother's favorite wrestler of all time? So we're getting into that. We'll hit some more texts and take some calls and check out Twitter as well. Halftime show. Terry Ford, Demetri in for Tyler today. David Dare's here. And we got a pair of NASCAR tickets, Dave. Oh, let's do this now. I got a pair. Hit the sounder. I just thought of this. Hit the sounder real quick. There you go.
Time to give away some tickets to the Goodyear 400 at Darlington.
Rick Hendrick wins 296. William Byron wins the Goodyear 400.
Here is some NASCAR trivia on the game. First person to get the question right wins.
It's very simple. What driver's won the most races at Darlington? Which NASCAR driver has won the most? Hit us up, 803-404-6100. Halftime show. We'll talk some more Mother's Day and wrestlers coming up next here on the game. what we're talking about, sponsored by Love Chevy. Many different things with Terry Ford, Demetri Ravenos, David Dare, we found out, Demetri, has a crazy wrestling family. Who would have known?
The PEW. Pew, Elvis, and wrestling. We learned about his sister. Those are the things that mattered to her most in this world.
When you are now an acronym,
yeah,
just saying,
you made an impact on your family for sure.
Absolutely. Who would have known?
I'm from Lawrence. Give me a break.
I can see. Can you see the David Dare family watching wrestling in the living room together?
But what I know of Dave, everybody has their own 2-liter of Diet Coke as they are sitting there watching.
And honey buns. Absolutely. And honey buns. All right.
I forgot about the honey buns.
Oh, yeah. We'll get some more texts. Hit us up, 803-446-6100, our Firehouse subtext of the hour. We're going to have more than one. We'll have multiple in our final segment. Your mom's favorite wrestler. We'll get going on that again. And also, I want to circle back real quick, because there's also, we talked about, Shane Beamer's comments about wanting players that want to play for Carolina. Brian Kelly saying, if you just want to come get paid, don't come to LSU because we want you here to win. Dabo bringing in no one from the transfer portal again. And then John Calipari, this was pretty interesting too, where Calipari said that he just wants 9 guys. Because of transfer
he only wants
portal.
to use 9 scholarships on Arkansas's basketball team because he said he doesn't want to develop anybody to go elsewhere, which, look, that's sort of the reality. Certainly he saw that at Kentucky with guys that would be buried on the bench. But if they're guys that weren't helping you and you were buried them on the bench, what do you care if they go elsewhere?
Yeah, and here's my other question. Who brought all those players to Kentucky? John Calipari. I mean, he's acting
Can we ask the obvious one here?
Right. I mean, he's acting like
this.
They held him at gunpoint to take these 5-star players, John.
Yeah. This is the other thing. It's like a coach that goes into a locker room without using all of their timeouts. Does he think he can roll those scholarships over to another time?
Yeah.
Like, what? Why would you not use everyone you have? I don't get it.
I mean, look, you were okay with the one and done culture, John, when you were cutting down nets and going to the Final Four and you won a national championship.
Right.
Heck, you were the leader of the one and done, right? And now all of a sudden you're like, well, I don't want guys here who don't want to be here.
Yeah, John Calipari was so good at the one and done culture. He literally convinced Coach K to change his mind in how he approached recruiting.
Right.
Like that's the truth. Like it's crazy to me to think about Calipari going to Arkansas, literally the exact situation that Kentucky was in, right? Arkansas used to be a traditional college basketball power that had been dormant and mismanaged under a lot of guys. Certainly Musselman had some success, but not the ultimate success. And now they expect that Calipari could really get them back to Final Fours, back to the mountaintop of college basketball. And if I'm an Arkansas fan, I'm wondering why he's coming in saying, hey, I'm not going to try my best.
Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to use 9 schollies. That's really all I'm going to use. And then I have equipment managers. They're going to come out, and we're going to have them scrimmage with us. Oh, this is going to be great. That guy at Kentucky, I'm not that guy anymore.
That's right. As much as SEC men's basketball has improved over the last 6-7 years, just coming out and saying, hey, we're going to take more walk-ons than anybody else feels like a recipe for disaster, doesn't it?
Yeah, but again, look, Calipari's a Hall of Fame coach. He's won a national championship. He took UMass and Memphis to the Final Four along with Kentucky. The dude's a coach. I'm not going to sit here and belittle his record, but he's also Kurt Russell from Used Cars, right? Right.
Yeah.
I mean, he is. And so whenever he's up doing this dance and blathering this stuff, it's almost like, okay, what does this guy want me to say so he'll drive a car off the lot? Right? And Arkansas feels like, I'm going to tell you I'm not going to be the guy I was at Kentucky. I'm going to be this new guy now.
Yeah, because everybody loves to change their stripes at age 70. That's when they really learn a new way of approaching their job.
I mean, look, I kept screaming at him like, look, dude, the one and done thing's done. Teams are winning now with grown men out of the transfer portal who are, 21, 22 years old. This isn't about 18-year-olds who are just stopping in Lexington on their way to the NBA. You got to read the room over. But this is weird. This reading the room over is not what I was talking about. I don't know.
Yeah, it's weird. Living in the Triangle in North Carolina, there was always this debate about the greater impact on college basketball. Was it Dean Smith or was it Coach K? And later on, I guess Roy Williams got in there too, but Dean and K were on this different level of college basketball legends. And I think it is a legitimate debate of what has more impact, sending more guys to the league or winning more championships? Which one makes you a better college basketball head coach? I think they are both valid arguments. I think the fact that, even as Dean's NBA players were mounting up and his championships were not, he was never far away. It does seem like Calipari has slipped further and further away from being a championship competitor as he stayed married to the one and done and dominating the recruiting rankings.
But now he's a different guy, Demetri. Yeah, I'm only going to take 9 guys now. I don't want guys to come in here develop to leave. Now I want guys who want to be here.
Is this like a Galaxy Brain level recruiting pitch where he has talked himself into the best way to go about this is to tell the world I'm only taking 8 or 9 scholarship guys, and that gives me a chance to get the top 8 or 9 guys in every recruiting ranking? Like, I'm trying to figure out how this even makes sense to John Calipari.
Right. I mean, it's one of two things, right? Because John's always looking for the angle. Or when Calipari was sharp and was at his best, right? He was always looking for the angle, correct? Either he's got an angle that we don't know yet, that we're going to see, or B, he's totally lost his mind. Right? He's totally gone down the rabbit hole of John Calipari.
Yeah, it's somewhere in between. And when you have guys like Lamont, when you have guys like Nate Oates at Alabama, you have, the guy at Mississippi State came from New Mexico State. Even Todd Golden at Florida. When you have
talking about Chris Jans? Okay.
Yes, Chris Jans. When you have all these guys that are younger, that are not the retreads that Calipari is, that Rick Barnes is, even though those guys are successful, Bruce Pearl at Auburn is another one. Even though those guys are successful, there is a level of energy, of being able to relate to recruits, of being a little bit more active and eager to establish your legacy that those younger guys have, that I just find it hard. If this is the way that Calipari is thinking about basketball now, dude, retire. You've got plenty of money. You're going to be great on TV. Why are you doing this if you don't want to do it to the level you've done it in the past?
Demetri Ravenno's hanging out with us. Terry Ford, Captain Dave's here as we roll the halftime show. All right, our Firehouse Sub text of the hour. We're going to have texts of the hours. We have plenty of folks who have texted in at 803-446-6100 about their mom's favorite wrestlers. Who knew? Who knew that moms were such a gigantic core of the wrestling fan? Who knew?
It's true.
It's crazy. All right, we got that. We're going to hit all those texts. Demetri's going to hit a bunch of those coming up in the next segment. Also, because Dave loves doing this, we got a pair of tickets to tomorrow's Georgia-South Carolina baseball game of Founders. We'll do caller number 6. Give us a ring right now, 803-404-6100. Demetri, Dave loves contests.
Well, how could you not?
Them. Caller
Talking
6.
to the public.
803-404-6100. Give us a ring right now. You want to go to tomorrow's game, South Carolina and Georgia. Caller number 6. Ring us up right now. Again, 803-404-6100. Tonight, 5:15 pregame, 5:30 first pitch. Georgia, South Carolina. You can hear it right here in Columbia at 107.5 the game and in Myrtle Beach at 100.3 the game. We'll come back. Firehouse Sub Textuses, plural of the hour, coming up here on the halftime show. Terry and Demetri and Dave on the game. Firehouse Sub Texases of the hour here on the Halftime Show. We got a winner for the tickets there, Dave, correct? Alrighty. All right, Demetri Ravenos hanging in for Tyler. Dave's here. Jay Phillips. Jay Phillips couldn't wait to jump in on this topic, Demetri. Because Jay and his mom always sat around and watched wrestling together.
Yeah, I can't.
Did your mom ever stop and watch it on TV when you were watching it when you were growing up?
Not that I recall, man.
Mine either. My mom had no desire.
No, mom really, she kind of liked, Carolina football.
Mm-hmm.
And she would watch the Braves with me.
Mm-hmm. But no wrestling, huh?
But I don't think anything
No lumberjack
else, man.
matches?
Yeah.
Didn't do the lumberjack matches?
Mom was just, she was just more like go team, like go sports.
Well, Demetri's mom watched wrestling.
Now, I had stories. Okay, follow me here. My mom's dad, so my granddad, his mom, when his dad died, his mom moved to Columbia and lived over here at Cornell Arms. And now I never knew her.
Okay.
But I'm told she would go to wrestling at the township or wherever like once a month.
Nice.
But I never knew her.
Never knew her.
Hell yes.
So there is a female connection to pro wrestling in my family, but that's about it.
All right, so what do you got there on the old Firehouse Sub text line there, Demetri?
All right, we got a few here from Dr. Bulldog. Mom loves Superfly Jimmy Snuka.
Oh, I love me some Jimmy Snuka.
Off the top rope.
From Sativa, I was not a mom back then, but I love Jake the Snake Roberts.
A lot of folks like Jake. By the way, Jake out of the ring, easy life, no drama.
Yeah.
Wow.
Have you heard about Jimmy Superfly Snuka's life out of the ring?
Oh yeah, it was crazy.
He may have killed a woman, and by the end of his life, when it was finally discovered, the courts were like, "Yeah, what are you going to do? Sometimes that happens."
Sometimes you screw up and you kill somebody. Oh well, but he was Jimmy Superfly Snuka.
Let's see. From oh, hang on, I just lost the one I was looking at. Here it is, from Tom Brady's #1 fan. Oh my God, loving the show brings back memories. I'm a 65-year-old mom who would take my son, nephew, and their friends when we were young to matches all over the Southeast. The #1 for them was Ric Flair. They loved him, and when he would walk by them coming to the ring, they would be transfixed by his every move.
I believe that.
Ric Flair was the man.
I believe that.
Absolutely.
So I asked Rick one time, we were interviewing him at a pregame show when he was here. And I knew, look.
Right, sure.
Right. So I saw him fight Road Warrior Hawk in a singles match. Because sometimes the Road Warriors would split up, right?
Right.
In Asheville. And it was for whatever belt. It wasn't for the world title, but it was for one of the belts that Rick held at the time, right? And I remember, and Rick at the very end got himself, wink, wink, disqualified.
Sure.
And that meant it was a draw.
Right.
And Asheville Civic Center was furious, right? Furious. And I remember asking Rick, how many matches, right?
Right.
So he doesn't. And I was like, Rick, why'd you get yourself disqualified that day up in Asheville? And then all he did was tell me like how awesome Hawk was, which was cool. So,
Rick did remember that.
No, I got some stories. Listen, I've told you all before, man. You do this topic, and everything will stop in its tracks.
It's great, and obviously, like I've been saying through the show, what says Mother's Day better than some wrestling?
Oh, nothing.
Yeah,
I look at it.
Yeah, listen, the number of people whose mothers love Johnny Weaver is overwhelming.
It's crazy. Johnny Weaver, now again, that's a 70s dude, because I remember little Terry Ford, my uncle loved Johnny Weaver. And now Demetri got to see Demetri Googled Johnny Weaver. What was your description again for Johnny Weaver?
Well, first of all, at age 30, he looks like he's 65. But also, he is either coming to the ring in a varsity jacket or a bathrobe, but nothing in between.
Johnny Weaver, do I remember?
If you went on the internet, you'd remember Johnny Weaver.
When would he have stopped? Because the name rings a bell, but I can't.
Johnny Weaver might be wrestling somewhere in Beloit, Wisconsin right now.
Well, he died.
I was about to say, these pictures definitely have a mid-70s look to them. And
he was around the Wahoo McDaniel era.
I remember Wahoo.
Yeah, he was like around that Wahoo McDaniel era was Johnny Weaver.
Okay, so because Wahoo McDaniel played for the New York Titans?
Something like that, yeah.
Johnny's partner was George Becker. Just want to throw that out.
I got nothing on George Becker. How about you, Demetri? You remember everybody. You got George Becker?
Oh, sure. I do not know George Becker.
I remember
He's the
Ted
one
Danson
that,
played Becker in a sitcom. Maybe that was it.
Sure.
Based on the life of George Becker.
Yeah.
Wasn't the point of Becker that he was a doctor but also blind?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, it was a goofy, weird.
I remember
thing.
that. I didn't watch it.
Seems like a terrible doctor.
Right.
No, I do have some good there. And there was some lady, that was at every time I went to the township to see wrestling, she was there, man. And I mean, you almost felt like she was planted, but I don't think she was. Mm-hmm. But I mean, she was in if she hated you, she was in your face every match. She hated the ref.
Oh yeah,
she was right, and she got the same seat. It was. I mean,
that was my uncle. I was telling Demetri earlier, my uncle believed it was all real.
Yeah.
He believed it.
It's still real to me, damn it. Remember that
guy? Before we go, Terry, and I guess Jay as well, were there any female wrestlers that caught your attention as a young man?
All of the Glow. Wrestlers. I had the Playboy as a youngin'.
I only remember two names, all right? Like, because Fabulous Moolah lived here.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
She trained wrestlers out in Northeast Columbia, yeah. Right. And then I remember Wendy Richter.
Oh, yeah.
That's like the only two names I could tell you. But Fabulous Moolah, the reason, and again, she's from, she had a place out near Richland Northeast High School.
I won't lie. Glow was so bad it was good. I watched that Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling, man. I was all about it.
I get it.
Yeah, I never missed Glow.
Who would? That was must-see TV.
Is it still a
Fools, damn it. That's who would.
Hey, Demetri, thanks for hanging in, man. This was a blast, dude. Appreciate you.
Yeah, boys. Always good hanging out.
All right,
Later, man.
Post-game show next.
It is.
All right, man.